lose our feed. But we can chat here just for a second. Yeah, I'm familiar with the tech collaboratives. There's like a yearly report here too. And I was thinking
Yeah.
a Heartland Developer Conference.
Oh,
I think
yeah, yes, that's another one. We've had so much going on. It's
yeah, no, I think it's awesome. I've just barely dug into it as a entrepreneur myself. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm working full time with Paradigm Oral Surgery. Like COVID hit and is in need of some more steady full time work instead of consulting and contracting.
Mhm.
But BI and analytics consultant here at Hard and a aspiring tech entrepreneur too. So I'll talk about that a little bit when I introduce myself here. But I'm
Yeah.
familiar with Tech Collaborative and
Yeah. They
some of
definitely
the things you're doing, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They've got good stuff going on. So I've definitely opened my eyes. I graduated with a degree in marketing and a minor in sustainability. So I was fairly new to the tech world. So it's definitely opened my eyes to a lot of opportunity and possibilities. So thankful for it.
Yeah, I'll ask you more about the sustainability. I'm kind of interested in what that entails too. I just finished my MBA program up, and we talked a lot about sustainability at Creighton,
Oh,
which I'm representing
yeah,
it today.
there we
I
go.
just
Yep.
finished up my last class like 2 weeks ago, but I'm gonna
Congratulations.
write that
That's really
down.
exciting.
Yep, which frees me up to teach some more classes and kind of reach out and help teach some tech skills to the community.
Hmm.
So something I really
Thank
enjoy
you.
doing. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, should we get started?
I think so. I think
I think we can
Michael's.
go for it. I think Ronnie can join us. The introduction isn't too intense here. I know, kind of warm introduction there. We got started just chatting the first few minutes, but I'm Jeremy Bergman. Like I said, BI and analytics and tech professional based here in Omaha, Nebraska. I've been around here my entire life. The Omaha area I lived in, surrounding areas here, a little bit outside of town, but of course my career's been entirely focused in Omaha, Nebraska. It's actually be a good time to give you a little introduction about myself. I have this pulled up in some PowerPoint slides. So let me share my screen and make sure this works. There we go.
There we go.
Looks good for everybody. You can see it.
Yep,
All
I can
right.
see it. Looks
Nate,
like your beard doubled.
it's growing on me. I know everybody keeps rooting it on. I kind of want to cut it or do something with it. But everybody keeps rooting it on, so it grows longer and longer.
Yep.
And now I'm like,
For your note.
have to take it. You have to take it to the barber. I'm afraid of touching it and messing it up, which I've done a couple times too. But no, anyway, I'll just say in a BI and analytics professional. Let me go full screen here to let's see, let's present from the beginning. Hopefully this works.
There we went. Just
Maybe
click
not.
through all the way.
Oh, dang. There we go. Sorry. I'm getting warmed up here too.
You always got to work through the tech.
All right.
Day one.
There we go. Yeah, Nate asked me to experiment with this thing a little bit. Treat it like like a podcast or something that's going on the internet. So we'll give it a try. He suggested these banners down here as far as saying the contact information here, or I can change one of these other guys too.
Okay.
That'd be a good one to start with. So that when it goes online, you can review it earlier and you can see the information. You can remember what class it was and who was teaching it and their contact information and everything. All right. So just introducing myself, like I said, as just been around the Omaha area. It's where my careers kind of took off. My background, quite the educational background, quite the journey over the last 20 years. So started with a Bachelor of Computer Science. So that's where I kind of learned a lot of my initial technical skills. Like back in the day in the early 2000s, it was, and even nowadays, you'd find that it's pretty hard to get IT jobs. It's having a little bit of a challenge finding jobs at the time, even after like the .com boom bust. So that tells you how ages me a little bit, but went back to school for my passion as far as being a master's degree in statistics. So really, I'm an analytics guy at heart who's worked a lot with data in a business sense, and whether that's databases or scripting like Python, data visualization, creating predictive models and everything like that. I've done a little bit of everything, which kind of lends itself pretty well to a startup environment Michael and I are in. I have a little bit expertise in everything, and databases is one of them. So that's my career took off probably about 2017 or so. Had an opportunity to start consulting with somebody I worked with. He owned a inventory management business. He really liked some of the work I did. It's from all the way from the starts, like reporting, data visualization, data analytics, forecasting, that type of thing. So I got a good opportunity to do that and make some money and start an MBA to become a professional management consultant, which is kind of my goal, and solution and management consultant. And just keep on rolling, I think. Keep on learning. The good thing about being a consultant is that there's always opportunity to learn new opportunity to learn a new technology, and that's what I love to do, being a lifetime learner. And then teaching it to other people. So that's a big part of, like growing the community as far as technical skills, making them aware, and, kind of just like spreading the joy of whether databases or other technologies. So recently, working on a pretty cool project, full-time job with Paradigm Oral Surgery. We're building this platform in the cloud that Michael's joined us, and we're glad to have him do that. But yeah, it's kind of after that, as far as starting to get into tech entrepreneur roles. So my overall interest is machine learning and analytics. So you hear a lot about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is kind of a branch of machine learning, kind of where systems you do predictive models and they start making their own decisions, kind of like all the horror movies you hear about. But I like to think of mine as more of the benevolent type and more about automation and making the world a better place. But kind of where that's headed, eventual PhD might be here in the future too. So gonna start taking a look at that. So my background, hobbies and passions, I said a lot about it. I love numbers and analysis, even more than I do, just the data itself. Like to combine that with business. Recently got into investing in crypto and took a class there at Creighton. Really interesting class, really a lot deeper than people would think or give it credit for. There's a whole new world of invention coming out of that. So something I'm taking a look at, and enjoy sports. So I coach my daughter's teams. I'm kind of in between soccer and basketball season right now. So timing's perfect. My oldest daughter is 12 now, so she's an 8th grader. And then we have a 4th grader and an all-out toddler at our house. So we need to get her in sports, eventually involved in something here. But no, I love, the coaching and the leadership that goes along with it, and just the sports itself. I think it's great activity for kids and great to be part of a team, especially now with COVID. Then just reading, exercising, and teaching has really become a passion. The more I advance my education and kind of see the value of, teaching, learning, and sharing that with other people and growing the community, helping grow the community, especially in these areas, really important as far as like emerging technologies like machine learning and AI and crypto space and stuff like that, just to get the word out there to people what it's all about. But SQL is, I would say it's the basis. Like, I was trying to get my 12-year-old to be involved in this class. She wasn't interested in it at all, but I'm like, and if you know SQL, you'll have a job somewhere. Like, just being able to pull data from a database and structure it and format it and be able to it's data management and manipulation is what we title this class. So being able to manage it and get it in the format you need to be able to turn that data into information. Say businesses need those skills, like almost any business that you go to, big or small. So it's like, I just feel it's a really good, solid, like skill set to help teach people with. And this is mostly an introductory class. So it doesn't assume that you have any previous knowledge, and then the class builds on itself as we go. So it'll start out slow and kind of start to ramp up, be more advanced. As we go through these 4 weeks, 2 classes a week, they all build on each other. So looking forward to the journey.
Hey,
right.
Chairman, can I interrupt for a second? Was Ronnie able to join? Is she?
Oh, man. Yeah, I forgot to. Hey, Ronnie. Good to see you again.
Hi, good to see you too. I'm glad to hear you got into that crypto stuff. I'm anxious to hear that. I was studying some global token exchange information earlier today. So
yeah, there's that was my final class at Creighton. I'm just finished my MBA degree.
Okay.
There, and I took kind of like an economics or like a strategic cryptocurrency class.
Mm-hmm.
So blockchain and crypto.
Yeah.
And that was one of them, like the decentralized exchanges, like how you exchange different the markets and how you exchange different coins. That was like a whole big week's worth of topics, which is pretty interesting in discussion and lots of reading and papers, but really interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. We'll have to chat about that during breaks. I won't try to go on while I'm teaching SQL too much, but more. Nate's actually talked to me about teaching those classes, so we'll keep that to a TBD if we get enough interest. Cool. But no, like I said, I have the passion here for teaching the community these tech skills. That's kind of like, as I become more educated, you start to see the value of passing that knowledge on to the community, helping them grow their skill sets, and it just makes for like better community in general, more educated, doing cool things, either cutting edge stuff or even stuff with SQL that's been around for a long time that businesses really need. So providing value that way has really become a passion. All right. So I would like to kind of hide that one there. That felt like that was taking up a lot of space. All right. So background and expertise, I kind of have talked about it through the first slide and just a warm introduction, but kind of have a professional mission statement to provide the BI&A, business intelligence and analytics, education, and my own professional services through consulting that enable businesses to create value using data. So one of the big things is businesses generate a ton of data. We see this, Michael's seen this with some of the systems where people are continually working in, but they're just a ton of transactions and interactions or any other type of information that people are entering or systems are creating on a day-to-day basis. But to really create value out of that, it takes a person to just understand both the data and the domain. So a little bit about understanding more about the business and understanding kind of like how this data is created, what does the data mean, makes you really valuable once you start to do SQL, because like you can take that data and you can actually create business value out of it, which I think is just really one of the cool parts of the job, and learning these type of skills. But yeah, my experience, I've been doing this for a little over 13 years in this area. Just diverse experience. Like I said, I've done a little bit of everything with data. It's pretty interesting. So as far as like we're with the job me and Michael are at, we're starting to move data into the cloud. We're doing this in a data lake, which is kind of cutting edge, and we're building a data warehouse. And using SQL databases or different technologies to store and retrieve data. But everything, the analytics pieces too. So I've been in market research. I've done predictive analytics. That's kind of whatever the business has asked me to do. We find a way to do it with data. And it becomes kind of enlightening or enriching, because if you're paying attention, you can learn a lot about business too. You can learn a lot about the business or the way things work, or sometimes we find the way they don't work, I guess, like there's a system error or somebody entered in something correctly, or why did something happen? You start to become really valuable with these skill sets because you're one of the people who can pull the data and make sense out of it. And the business kind of starts to count on you to help them answer these questions. So I've done a lot in that area. My background, I started to say bachelor's of science in computer science, master's degree in statistics. So I love analytics, especially around sports. I have hobbies outside of work, collecting sports statistics or collecting data in crypto markets and stuff like that, and trying to make sense of it. So when I'm not doing data, I'm doing something with data outside of the work, or spending time with my girls with the additional time I have. That's pretty much my life in a nutshell. And then teaching classes like this, of course. Then just a little flyer for my consulting business. Not really active right now since I'm working full time, but some of the things I do, I offer. I think training is a big part of it, just educating people in business about what is possible with BI and analytics and technology, and then providing those services that, like I talked about, take that data and create value for the business. So all that data that's generated, that's just sitting in files or systems or whatever, taking that and in any number of ways, turning it into something valuable, or even consulting on strategy. So trying to help businesses put together a roadmap for what that looks like, which is something that we're also doing with Paradigm. All right. So last slide, just but with the kind of like my background and introduction. Nate really likes us each to share a data science philosophy. So it's kind of interesting when you hear data science. It could mean a lot of things, really. And it means a lot of different things to businesses. If you'd ask one business, they consider a data scientist to be something completely different. And they're probably right in their own context. So data science is really dependent on like the value that the business gives to it. Maybe it's, some of these things about domain and soft skills, like trying to find business insights, being a problem solver, like I talked about, being influential, curious about data. It could be the technical piece. So like some of the things that we're learning here is SQL is a part of it, having that skill set. Knowing Python. You'll see some of these are really familiar here as far as the skill sets you're learning in Data Science Academy. The math and statistics piece, that's really where like machine learning and AI come in. And then communication and visualization, which is the class that you just took last, how you visually tell a story and communicate that data into the information that the other people, the stakeholder in the business or your audience is really like trying to both understand and kind of visually realize and see. So the data science philosophy is really like, if you said a data scientist is one of these, I would say yes. But I consider them to really be kind of at this point, like kind of like a jack of all trades. They can do a little bit of everything. As far as these, now those people are really hard to find. Somebody who knows, like, Hadoop and Hive, along with has the business skills to be able to go talk to management at the same time. And if you talk to businesses, they'll say the same thing. They're like, well, why can't we find any of these people? It's because they're very rare, somebody to have both of these skill sets. So really, they're starting to split data science into, the math and statistics and the business side of it. And then they have data engineering in the programming and database, and maybe some communication and visualization of it too. This would be like a data analyst and a data engineer, and this would be the data scientist who's doing like the machine learning and the predictive modeling, and goes and solves businesses' problems. So I really think it's like an interdisciplinary, at this point, it's really an interdisciplinary, kind of role or domain. You get to be a little bit of everything. And one of the keys to this is just, I think curiosity is a big one. Really, like, you're always curious about data. You're kind of like the toddler a little bit who keeps saying, well, why is this? Why is this? You keep questioning things, and it leads you down that path. But then having the soft skills to be able to translate that to other people, those are the things that really, I think, drives a lot of value with data science. So my philosophy in it is really like, if I were recommending to somebody how to become a data scientist, I would say, if you have some of these, if you're somebody who already has some business skills, the domain a little bit, your business, you work well with people in there, then you could start learning some of these technical skills. And Data Science Academy, of course, is one of the good places to do it. A number of classes online too, and resources there. But just if you have that, just to start to learn the technical skills and do some of the projects that are online through something like, I'm drawing a blank on it right now, Kaggle competitions or something like that, and just take a look at what people are doing as far as data science and stuff like that. And then, of course, in this class, I'll guide you through a part of this and help you really gain some solid skills related to data science with databases and SQL. And hopefully, at the end, you'll have some good skills that come out of it. And there is one lecture at the very end. It's kind of optional lecture that kind of starts to talk about alternative ways of storing data to your relational databases too. So have a pretty good start. Hopefully, after you take you've taken the Python class in this class on the programming and database piece of this. So that's a lot to explain to it about a data scientist. Like, I understand the challenges. Everybody's always like, well, can you explain data science in a sentence? And if I were to do that, I would say it's a little bit of everything related to data. The data scientist helps you solve problems and bring the value out of the data to help solve those problems. I'm still working on it. It's complicated. Anybody have questions about what a data scientist is, or thoughts or anything like that? It's kind of a mouthful, but I was talking about there.
I agree. There's a lot to it, and it's very interdisciplinary, and still evolving. because you're right. Different companies have different titles for things that they do, and different trajectories of what's happening, but definitely very exciting and interesting.
Yeah, I think even in Omaha, if you see a data science title, I've done this a few times. So you'll see a title that'll be like a pretty generic data scientist, like required skill sets. But these businesses are looking for very different things. Like once you get to go in and actually interview, or perhaps they don't know what they're looking for exactly. Maybe they're just looking for a data scientist who can do a little bit of everything. And I guess this is these courses are a pretty good start at at least having parts of those skill sets, or potentially whether you end up as a data scientist after this, or a data analyst, or a data engineer, the programming and database pieces will come invaluable to you, I think, either way. Or if you're just creating reports, BI development, if you're just pulling reports for the business out of the systems, you're likely it'll likely end up eventually be useful to say, well, instead of having to go and pull these reports every day, what if I could script it with Python? Or what if it already lives in a database or something? I could just go write a query and get it and put it in a report, and off we go. So whether or not you become a data scientist out of all of this, I think you have by the time you get through the first part of the Data Science Academy, you have quite a few of these programming and database and visualization skills. And then the second part is really where Gordon takes it and helps you with the analytics piece, like machine learning, and even a little bit of solving these types of problems, domain knowledge and soft skills. And we'll work on a class project here that helps out with a little bit of that too, hopefully. So you kind of get the idea of kind of like what a question looks like, and how you would store and manage data and use SQL to be able to answer those types of questions. All right. Don't want to talk too much, but I wanted to give everybody there a good introduction, what I'm all about, and where I come from, and a light introduction to the class. So a little bit of my philosophy behind data and what the rest of this may look like. And I think I'm going to try to also that ODSA logo. Does everybody see that at the top left? I'm kind of hiding behind it here a little bit. Let's see if I can hide that here a little bit. Okay. There we go. Sweet. All right. All right. So that said, I'm going to introduce the syllabus here. So now that you know a little bit about me and my background and what I'm all about and why we're all here, just a rundown of this class, what it's going to be all about, the structure of it, and also what you will learn. All right, so this is part of Omaha Data Science Cohort 10. So there have been actually 8 other classes before you. They did not have a cohort last year due to COVID, but we did teach some online classes with Physicians Mutual and a couple other classes here and there as requested by people. So Ronnie was actually a part of, I want to say, cohort 8, right before COVID. Oh, Ronnie, I can't hear you.
I think it was cohort 7. That's what my Slack channel says anyhow. Cohort 7 and cohort 10.
Yeah. No, it feels like it was just yesterday almost.
Well, I think they
it's
were
like
merging 7
like
and 8 or something as well. So it was kind of a combination.
Yeah, the past kind of blended there, and We did get
Yep.
through all of those. We did get it through all of those classes eventually, right before the pandemic hit.
Right.
But welcome you back here, Ronnie, for this class. I know you took some of these, but I'm sure it'll be a good refresher. And
Exactly.
just a question: have you used any SQL skills in your job yet?
No, because we were just, dealing with schedule stuff. And I mean, the pandemic just threw all the technology and the education, the getting iPads in kids' hands and all the maintenance around that,
Yeah.
so our ability to tax our technical side of the house to let us get our fingers wet. They had all their hands full getting 50,000 iPads in the hands of kids. So,
Yeah.
there was good that came out of that, though. There's finally technology in kids' hands, which is a good thing in all kids' hands.
Yep. No, yeah, it's kind of a crazy time. My girls' school, they go to private Catholic, and over at St. Cecilia, and yeah, it's definitely a interesting way of life. And then trying to figure out how everybody's going to do everything there for a short amount of time. But I think we've all adapted, and we're still doing these classes online, and they're going pretty well, I think, actually. So yeah, the hope for this goal is that to go back through all these skills that you learned the first time. It'll be a good refresher, plus to make it as interactive as possible. So the description of this class is really teaching you the beginning parts of this class, especially the first four or so of these. It's the basics of SQL. They'll really learn how to store, clean, query, and access data that lives in databases. So relational databases. So these are databases. Think of it as like a big can that holds a bunch of tabular Excel sheets. So you have a database that holds all the data and little tables inside of it that holds data in both rows and columns. So you have a bunch of records, and then you'll have fields that kind of say what is your gender, what is your race. They could be numeric, like amounts and things like that. But the first part of the class is really just how do I work with SQL? How do I do different things within it? Then, as I was mentioning, before the class starts to build on itself. So the initial classes are about how do I just get data back that's already stored in the database. We start to do things like creating your own tables or ways to store data so that it can live there and you can go get it later. How do I bring multiple data sets together? So if I have two different data sets, how do I bring those together into one data set that may be useful for the business? And then there's often at times a lot of cleaning of data also. So not always the prettiest or cleanest, as Michael has definitely seen that too. The systems that generate them aren't really always created with the intent of, people actually eventually using the data for something else. So having to transform and clean the data in a way out of a SQL database that's usable by the business is one of the keys here and one of the things that are taught in this class. And then eventually, as we progress, I've added a section on advanced database functionality. So here's some advanced things that you can do and automate within a database or do multiple step queries. And then it ends with how do I design a database to be able to most effectively store the data. And then in a practical sense, in a business intelligence or data science sense, if you're doing these projects, how do I really store and manage that data that maximizes the value of the data also? So we will cover quite a bit of ground here, from just the basics all the way to design, and then just practically how do you use SQL and databases within a business. So that part's really important. It's not just learning the skills, but connecting how you would actually use this thing and some of the things that you'll likely see related to data within almost any business you'd work in or within your career. So this class, to give you some more concrete examples and get your hands on data that you may use, I've included a COVID-19 data set. So kind of an interesting one you could load into Tableau or something similar to that. It'll have information about different counties and states, the number of new cases, the number of deaths, something that you can store and bring together with the other data sources, which we'll do, and even create the type of visualization that Michael was, showing more before class. So storing that data, being able to use it in a meaningful way. There's a class project also. I make this optional because it has varying levels of, the class project is more something that we'll work on near the end of each class and do independently. And it kind of depends on your motivation level on how much you want to do yourself and additionally learn. But I'm more than happy to help you with the class project. It's related to, a real life business question from like a video game company. And then you're bringing in different data to try to help them answer some questions. And I lay out the project along the way to kind of take you through the different steps that are related to each one of these lessons in the syllabus. So you can really tie, I like that. If you're willing to do the project, which is entirely optional, it's really related to each one of the lessons that we learn in this class. And then we'll do other things. We'll do labs at the end of it, or we'll do exercises and kind of labs with the last hour of each one of these classes. And I give online quizzes once a week. So I won't have one for this week, but next Monday there will be a quiz over the first 2 classes. And then, so every Monday we'll do excluding this one, we will do a quiz over the previous 2 lectures. And what I think that really, what's that?
It's good to know that early at a time.
Not graded. Eventually in Data Science Academy, we are going to get there as far as grading all the assignments too. If you'd like me, like the quizzes will give you instant feedback, but if you'd like me to look over your, like your exercises or class projects, they won't officially have a grade, but I can give you a pretty good feel for how you're doing with the project and things that you need. So basically at this point, it's for your enrichment, but eventually down the road, we're looking to kind of have more graded assignments as part of these things. So yeah, online quizzes. So I have a bunch of resources, supplemental resources, class project, exercises, quizzes that will help test your knowledge. Plus these quizzes, like I said, with this class, I feel these topics really build upon each other. So having a quiz on Monday over the previous 2 lectures will help you really get a refresher and get you rolling with the current lessons. Kind of like the windshield look and remembering everything that you learned the previous week so that you can also use that during the current week. I don't think I'm forgetting too much out of this. So this class is really, like I said, structured in a sense for it to be practical in business applications, like how you would, not just like a SQL class where you could go and learn all the queries. You could do that anywhere. It's more this class, the value add is relating it to business and how you would actually use it to answer questions within business. For business, both business intelligence and data science projects. So business intelligence, I really consider that to be like the big encompassing everything with data. So that's like storing data in the cloud, building data pipelines, using Python, storing it in databases, creating reports, all the way up to predictive analytics and AI and machine learning. It's all kind of encompassed in business intelligence. But I often think of people often think of business intelligence as kind of like the first 3 classes here in the Data Science Academy, and then the analytics is the other piece. But really, I kind of oftentimes see this as one. But anyway, the skills here that you learn apply directly to the business intelligence piece, and then learning how to do this in data science projects with the SQL programming language and relational databases. And then these series of lectures are the different topics that you can apply. And then wherever I can, I try to apply a most realistic way you would use this within the business or within these types of projects also. So hopefully it's not just you learn these skills and it doesn't make any sense, that you can actually take these and apply these to similar challenges. We're really even getting that understanding of how to work with data sets and how to do certain operations here in the database that kind of bring that data to life, and how you do that within business is the goal. All right. So the class itself is structured. We have 3 hours. This is from 6 to 9. I think during break we can talk about if we want to start this class a little bit earlier or not. But generally, no matter what, it will be a 3-hour class. The first hour and potentially 2 hours, depending on how long the lecture is, will be lectures. So it'll be first part of the lecture, second part of the lecture, and the third hour will be spent as a lab. So it'll be exercises that apply the knowledge that you learned in that class, and then also an opportunity to work on that class project that we talked about. Obviously, with this class, it's more about the first class. It's more about the introductions and getting set up and everything for the rest of the class. But in general, that will be the structure. And if the lecture is a little bit shorter, we'll just work more on examples and exercises and answering questions in the class project. And then, like I said, we'll have quizzes every Monday that look back to the previous content. So we're always looking both backwards and forwards and getting plenty of practice in between, which is, I think, learning a new skill set. It's not just about learning the technical skills. It's actually like applying them and using them and really getting your hands on it and getting a feel for how it works. It's my philosophy. And then this class will do that, and that'll provide a lot of value in understanding how this works in a business environment. Any questions about the class itself, how it's structured? Everyone's looking forward to it? Just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Thanks. All right. Yeah, looking forward. It's definitely going to be a 4-week journey over 8 classes that builds upon itself. So looking forward to it. All right. 2 things I want to do. I should mention that we'll try to take a 10-minute break every hour also. So we're coming up on an hour here. I just want to do one more thing. I could introduce this class project here near the end. So let's do 2 things to make sure that we're set up for class. We'll talk about the class project here in hour 3. I'll introduce that so we have plenty of time to do that. So class project will be optional, but I will point you to all of these resources that we have. And if we want to tackle a class project, but by all means, we can do so. So let's make sure we have 2 things set up. So we have GitHub set up in MySQL Workbench. So in the previous classes, Michael, did Jonathan have you set up with this GitHub repository?
I do not recall having a GitHub set up as part of this class.
Oh, nobody did?
And Maura and Ronnie, feel free to tell me I'm, asleep at
No.
that time.
We didn't do GitHub this time around, and I got a new device, and so whatever you need me to download, I'm gonna have to get with my tech people because I don't have certain rights to download stuff.
Okay.
They've locked down with all the pads.
So here's one thing that we could do. We can go out to this GitHub website and we can download, and I'll show you how we can do that. That's interesting. Usually for a Data Science Academy, we set up GitHub and everybody gets used to pull it, like writing code and pushing it to the repository and getting it back and everything. Kind of like that version control, like learning how to program. But people were complaining about it a little bit, so I don't blame them. But it is out here, and let me make sure you can see this. And we can do this over break. We can take a little bit of a extended break to get all set up. What did I just do?
Where's this document that had the class outline? Did you upload that to Slack, or is that on the
I sent it by email, but it'll also be in this link in the syllabus. So it's this GitHub with my name, and I'll copy this in the chat for you also.
Hey, Ronnie, it's in your 419 email.
Okay.
As an attachment.
But over here, you can click on code and download a zip, and it will download all these files for you. And then you can just put it on your desktop. The only bad thing, Ronnie, is right now you don't have it. So I can probably drop this current lecture in here. Maybe I can send it to you here somehow I could send it by email or something. I was hoping that I could just drop it into this this chat utility here, but I'll do that over break. I'll just send you this. I'll send you this lecture. But at any time you can go out here and download the zip file, and it has everything. So it has old content, it has the class project, it has the data source that we're using, data sources, a whole bunch of example code,
and that's
all the lectures.
GitHub site.
Yep. So I dropped that link into the chat.
And I'm on iPad, on StreamYard, and on a laptop to do, so I can file. I don't have double screens at home here.
Yeah, that's okay.
Have the right connector. So, can you throw it in Slack or not?
Yeah, that's better option here, so that we can just go get that. All right, so I'm gonna put this link in Slack, and I am going to put the first lecture here.
See, he used Google Drive to throw all our stuff in this time around.
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Did.
I'll probably do that after. I'll do that as a takeaway from today. I just didn't realize that nobody was using GitHub anymore. But I can easily take this and put this on Google Drive and share that with everyone. That's
and
not
then
a
just
problem.
make a separate class for this one, because I think we have the Python class and the Tableau class or data visualization. So we just make a folder.
I'm comfortable with GitHub, but I don't, I can defer. I can do whatever. I do think that the Google Drive has certain access controls, and I'm not sure who's controlling it.
Oh yeah, I can do. Yeah, I have access to the CAN Google Shared Drive, so contemporary analysis. So I used to actually post these out to Google Drive, but then everybody was using GitHub. So like trying to be one of the cool kids, I started doing that too. But then all the cool kids moved away from it, I guess. So here we are.
Jeremy, I'm gonna have to have all the stuff installed ahead of time.
Okay. So this class, I'm only going to require you to install one thing. I actually moved these databases to the cloud so that we didn't have to install a bunch of software on like people's different operating systems, like the Mac OS and Windows or whatever somebody might bring. So I have one file here that I want to share with some directions. And all I require this time is that you install MySQL Workbench. So I'm going to put this.
And if I don't have the admin
here.
rights to do that, I might have to just sit and watch this time.
You might
until
possibly.
I'll get it done tomorrow
Yep.
at school. But
yep. Well, the first lecture is intentionally light on purpose. As far as code and everything, because we always have, say, when we're installing everything, somebody, something goes weird on somebody's computer, they don't have access or whatever. So kind of plan ahead for it. Let's see. So nothing out of the ordinary, I guess is what I'm saying. We plan for it and used to it. Let's see. So I'm going to put this in Slack. I'm just going to start sharing my Slack screen over here. Oh, that looks terrible. Here, I'm just going to drop this file in here. So there's a text file with some instructions on how to install MySQL Workbench. It's pretty straightforward. And I'll let everybody do this over break. Oh, that looks a lot better if I put that in there as text. So you follow this link and you download and install it. And then I can help you set up this connection. So once you install it, you set up this connection. And in this class, I've actually, since there are 3 of you, I've given everybody username and passwords for us to try out, so that you have access to this database. And you can write queries in it and everything, but you also kind of have your own little spot to work within the database. So I would say we'll take a break, and over the next like 20 minutes, we'll get everything set up and just try to, for Maura and Michael, if you can download the course content and then run this installer. I think, Ronnie, you could give it a try.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a try just so I can tell my tech guys tomorrow. I mean, again.
Let me think. There's something I could do here to help you out for tonight, but there might not really be. I'd probably give that a try. And I'm looking something up here real quick. Trying to see if there's something you could do through your web browser. Nothing really that practical. All right. Now that'll be your best bet. If you can't do it tonight, then do that tonight. Then we won't be missing out on a ton anyway. It's not too crucial and nothing we can't do and catch up on Wednesday. All right. So I lost my window here, but we can.
Can you leave the directions on there for a second?
Yes.
I'm just doing it on 2 different screens, so I'm just trying it.
I know I have like 10 windows here, and I lost the one that had everybody pulled up here.
And Jeremy,
Thanks.
those instructions, you put those in Slack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you could either click it on it in the GitHub site, or I put them in Slack here also. It actually looks pretty good. I think they actually connected Slack with GitHub, which was one of the appeals of using GitHub for these classes, but it's no big deal. Really, anything that's a technical challenge for anybody to learn SQL, I figure, it's just a barrier, and we can make it easy for everyone. Not a problem. All right. So, is everybody good with we'll take like a 20-minute break. Well, we'll take like a 10-minute break. And if you want to install if you want to set up or go to the file and get the class content and then set up MySQL Workbench in the meantime, we can do that, and I'll help everybody who can get connected. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
All right. We'll do a quick timeout, and I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Cool.
All right. Talk to you in a minute.
Yep.
Where did this window go? Okay, found it. I'm good. Hey, Michael, are you back online?
Yeah, I'm here.
I was trying to figure out here how I could set a background. I was trying to, it'd be a nice way to like kind of take a break. Can you see a background right now? Or is it just my name up?
It's your name in kind of a black gray with a white circle in the center
Okay.
with a profile picture.
Okay. It says, so I removed my camera. I figured out how to do that.
How I have a background is I've got a green sheet behind me, but I think you're trying to just do a picture.
Yeah, I'm
instead.
just trying to overlay one here over the video.
Gotcha.
I can do.
I kind of like this countdown. It's pretty cool. Hey, I see that. That's pretty slick. I'm kind of pumped. I'm like, let's go clubbing SQL and data science style.
It says some tech people will do that. They just listen to like trance or house music all the time. Helps get them in the zone, I guess. The steady beat. Just knock it out.
Yep.
I don't, so none of these seem to be working to add the background. Probably hide that banner. We know what class it is now. Let me know as everyone's installing things if you have any challenges.
So I need to update my computer. So it's like the one version below for it to work.
Yeah, no problem. We have plenty of time today if you
Okay, because I know I'll have to end up like popping off and doing the whole thing. So I don't know if that's just better for me to do after or between classes.
Well, we could do this. We could do this in hour 3 if you want, but we have we have plenty of time here on the front end or the back end, and there is a query in the lecture here that you could run while we're going through it. So it's not essential, but
okay. Yeah, because I know for me to update my computer, I'll definitely need to like do the whole restart, so I don't want to miss any lecture.
We could probably go ahead and do that in just hour 3.
Okay.
Now we're in the third hour, just get it all installed, and then you have plenty of time to restart and try to run this query and everything. It's not a problem.
And Jeremy, if you want to direct message me in Slack, my user ID and password.
Oh yeah.
When you have a moment.
So all of these are, the username will be your first initial and last name, and the password's the same, just with an exclamation point at the end. And Michael, if you're able to share your screen, let me know what you see.
Okay. Give me a second.
Turn my camera back on. I do like this StreamYard thing. I have to figure out a reason why I would need it.
Right.
Start doing my own podcast. Be boring stuff like databases. Now maybe incorporate some sports in there or something. Sports analytics.
Somebody I used to work with, they created their own podcast for data engineering. And it's kind of fun that I know them on it, but then it's interesting that they're pulling in different people that they know and have worked with. So it is kind of cool. And in a little bit, it's kind of like taking blogging to the next level. So it is kind of cool to be able to do that and keep track of things.
Yeah, it's really not hard to create your own channel on YouTube and just create your own content. Because you can see tweens doing it. So yeah, tweens are doing it and creating awful content. So why can't I?
Well, and he's pushing it out on LinkedIn. So he's kind of getting that benefit of
just connected to LinkedIn. It's good if you're your own consultant and you're trying to display your expertise or knowledge. It probably come down to it sometime. In the second go, my first go around was really kind of doing the work as like contractor consultant, but looking more to get into consulting and the strategic pieces of it. Don't mind doing the work, but I'm starting to get to be an old enough dog that I'd rather teach it when other people do it and guide them toward it.
That and it's could be interesting as well. Yeah. So I added my password out there, so now forever and ever and ever people will know my password. But is this what you wanted to see with the success message?
Let me see, Michael. Let me add this.
It's like a mirror.
Oh, what do I do? Successfully made the connection. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, sorry. Part of it was, is this what you wanted to see?
Yeah, and let's go ahead and hit OK on both of these, that one and the bottom right. Okay. And then if you bring up my SQL Workbench, you should have a connection that looks like that. So it looks like Michael is doing this correctly. And if it works, go up here. You're currently in administration in the top left. Go over to schemas. And you don't see anything there?
Not yet. Do you want me to do something more? Oh, I haven't run the SQL. You want me to run the SQL?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so go to query 1.
Yeah, go ahead and give that a try.
Is it the lightning bolt?
Yeah.
Denied?
Denied. Okay, I need to work on it the third hour here. So we'll just hold off to the third hour. And we'll get everybody installed, or everybody we can installed, and the access right to it or everything. I thought I set it up correctly, but I guess as we know, Michael, with the cloud Azure that we're doing, getting the right combination of permissions is the key.
Yeah, it's sometimes can be more challenging than expected. Yep.
Okay. More, were you able to download the lectures and everything? At least?
Yeah, that was the GitHub file, right?
Yeah. And also, I'll put them out there. I'll make a note to put it out on Google Drive here and share that link with everyone. Here for after class. Until you're really comfortable with GitHub too, if you're just using it for the first time, it's kind of a pain. It's just easier to go to Google Drive. But I get where they were going. Once you get used to it, it's kind of nifty to just pull the newest changes and stuff like that. But
I love sort of the sort of carefreeness it creates, where you just keep committing stuff and you go, oops, I want to back up. Super easy to back up.
Yeah. Well, in some ways you can in Google Drive too, because you save a file over top another and you still have a couple versions you can go back to.
True.
So it works in a similar way. All right. Ronnie, you have the lecture, today's lecture, ready to rock on that?
Let me see.
If not, I can share it here in the. I'll end up sharing it here in the.
You're
second
talking on
screen anyway.
GitHub, getting it from GitHub.
Oh, where did I put it in? Did I put that in Slack? Yeah, that, or I can link you to it, or either way, if you can't download it, you could just.
But
view
you
it
put it
today.
on GitHub, right?
Yep.
And so you want us to download.
I'll show you here real quick.
Jeremy and
Yep.
Ronnie, is that link that I just put in there the one that you're talking about in Slack?
The one that you just put in there, Michael.
Right, is that the one?
Yeah. If you click on that, I think it should download it automatically, right?
Yeah, I would think
or
so.
it'll take you to that and you can hit download. So if you click on that link, it takes you to this, Ronnie, and then you can download.
I don't see whose screen am I looking at. I just see people on the screen.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I'm sharing my bad. I forgot. Okay. Thank you. Do you see my second screen? Maybe not. Hold on. Share. Okay, there we go. Back on the same page. To regroup there. After a couple minutes away. Let's see. So if you click on that link, Ronnie, there in Slack, it should take you to this page. And then you could hit download. And then it should open it up for you. That, or you can just follow along with the lecture here. I always like one of the things I do before classes is I print out the PowerPoint lectures. Then I could follow along and make little notes with it, along with it and everything. But completely up to you. I just wanted to make sure you could access it and follow along if you wanted to.
It says, sorry about that, but we can't show the files that are this big right now.
Yep, if you hit download.
Okay.
Is there a download button in there next to it?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. Once again, I think
I can at least download that. I just can't install MySQL.
Yeah, that's okay. We have to troubleshoot that the third hour. Michael installed it, but he wasn't able to get all the way to where we wanted anyway. So we'll do this lecture and we'll troubleshoot that for Michael, and Maury, you'll be able to restart your laptop and do what you need, and we'll get you all set up in the third hour, which is kind of like what we do this first day anyway, is make sure everybody gets set up, and we cover the project in the third hour and maybe make sure you can do a query or two to get you started for the rest of them. But no worries for now. All right. So we are going to get this class started. And I'm going to hide myself. Well, actually, it'd be good to. It'd be cool if you could do just a little picture of myself here at the bottom, but we'll give this one a try for now. Let's see, we go full screen. Hold on one second.
Trying to remember, is it slideshow? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's slideshow. I always forget, don't I? From beginning. There we go. I'm just going to do full screen here. I'll figure out how we could add ourselves to the bottom here. But we'll learn all the tricks of the trade, and this thing's going to be pretty neat using this, using the StreamYard. But anyway, we'll get started with the class. So we call this class here in Omaha Data Science Academy Data Manipulation and Management. So it's all really about, if you think about the manipulation piece, so it's taking the data that I had talked about initially, the raw data that lives in different systems or different file formats. Here we are taking that data, we're managing it and putting it into SQL, and then we're doing a whole bunch of things to manipulate it, whether we're getting it back from the database. We tell the database, hey, I know that you have this data that's stored there in certain tables or certain places. Can you return me this information and get a display exactly what I need? Or there are other manipulations. You could summarize data. You can group it. So if you have males and females, you could tell it to group by males and females and maybe count how many people are in each group. So what's cool about SQL, it's really, once you get the hang of it, it's like really descriptive. I think it becomes intuitive. Like you're almost telling the database like exactly like, this is the data I want. This is how I want it. And you can even exclude things. So you could say exclude people with brown hair from it, or whatever your data has in it. We'll see in this class, we'll use a database that has different world continents and countries and cities, and that you can exclude like cities with different populations in it, or you can exclude Europe and stuff like that. So there's a data manipulation piece within SQL databases, and we call them these databases relational databases, because it's how you relate different data sets together, like those tabular data sets like Excel sheets, and you're using this SQL language to be able to bring those together, so manipulate them. And then the management piece, so being able to store data in these containers is really important. So taking that data that you get from different places, storing it in a table inside the database, so you can tell the database what data you want. You can tell it, if you're storing, one of the things we'll do in this class is store demographic data. So you could tell the database, hey, can you create a container for me, a database? Can you create a table, the little like Excel-like sheet that stores all of this information, so I can give you commands to get it later. So really, SQL is really powerful within these relational databases. And data manipulation and management, when I think about it, are the two like really different things that you do with it from like a business intelligence and analytics and data science point of view. So this lecture will be a pretty high level overview, pretty brief overview of the different aspects of these databases. Not too much code or technical details with this, but also an overview of why data manipulation and management's important and how you could start to use it in your project. So it's kind of like a light introduction into everything that we'll do in the rest of the class. All right. So what are the course objectives? So highlighted it a little bit here, but understanding the need, purpose behind data manipulation, storage, retrieval, cleaning, and management within data science projects. So really, those different pieces, getting the data, telling the database what you need and getting it into the format that you needed. How do you store it and retrieve it? And you can even do SQL commands to clean the data and manage the data. Very important in data science projects. You'll find that a lot of your time is spent really just kind of like organizing and gathering and manipulating the data. That, you know, the machine learning model or predictive model is only a small part of the whole project as far as like bringing all this data together and being able to do things with it, with SQL being one of those tools. All right. Well, next course objective is to perform common queries, aggregations, and joins. So queries are asking the database a question. So it's kind of like a query, kind of like that word. You say, all right, database, can you get me this information? So you're giving it a command and it'll tell you if you can get it, or sometimes it'll give you an error if it can't. Aggregations is summarizing the data in different ways. And then joins is what I talked about. So if you have two different data sets, you can tell the database, hey, take these two data sets, imagine those being my hands, bring them together into one data set based on what they have in common. All right. So related to that is combining disparate data sets for analysis. So why this part's so important to be able to do that and to be able to clean data and store it is now once you have all these data sources, you can bring in any number of combination of data sources in for a data science project or a visualization or a dashboard or a report. So oftentimes you see in the class project, like as you start to, management starts to ask questions, they may be from two different systems or two different data sources. And it may be the first time that somebody's ever asked that question. So you have to bring these together in a new and different way to answer like a new question or create a new business insight, create some new information out of it to really answer that question. And that's really kind of what I think analytics and data science is all about. Near the end of the class, we start to get to some more advanced techniques. So extracting data, cleaning it, and loading tasks. So we call this ETL. You'll often hear this in business. This is all of like taking data from systems and loading it into the database on a consistent basis. So you can create pipelines in Python to do this. You can create scripts and then manage it all in a database. And we won't go much into Python or scripts here. I introduce it a little bit later on just so that you're familiar with it. And you'll just hear you'll hear that term a lot in business, ETL, if you talk to the technical teams. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes on just to make data usable. And often it's in the form of these scripts that extract from systems, transform the data, and then load it into a database. Kind of like the things that we're talking about here. All right, so the last two lectures are understanding design and basic theory behind database design. So taking all the technical information you know and understanding how to design a database. So in this class, it's not just a technical skill, but really understanding like how relational databases work and how you can design a database for, storing data. Maybe it's an application that you're developing. Maybe you have accounts and transactions in two different tables. Like, how do you design and structure those in the most effective way? Or even for analytics. So we'll go through an example of how you would structure database tables to do analytics. And then last, it's going to be an optional lecture. We'll cover it near the end, but evaluating other cloud storage platforms and NoSQL alternatives. So there are a number of different ways that you can store and manage data that aren't related to relational databases. Relational databases are that's really the standard for business as far as like structuring data and making data available. But there are other technologies that you could use, to make use of data within a business. Michael and I do some of this at Paradigm Oral Surgery. So it's a oral surgery practice, and we bring all sorts of data together, and we haven't even necessarily stored it all in a database yet, but it does make it available to be able to use it. These alternatives make it available and be able to use data in potentially different ways. So that one will be more of just being familiar with these technologies. I won't ask too much out of this class, but it's kind of an introduction into those, and potentially one of those things, if there's enough interest, that we could eventually teach some cloud classes or storage and data lakes or some advanced technologies there too. So a little bit of a sales pitch here at the end, but just so I need to know that those are available, possibly to come here in the future. All right. Okay, we talked about how the class is structured already. I did that with the syllabus, but we'll review the first hour in quiz and start on the lecture. Oftentimes we'll have the lecture in hour 2, continue into hour 2. Emphasis on application, so that's where we'll start to do example. We'll take our time and do examples as we go through each one of these lectures. And then the last hour, so it's usually hour 3 here, is the hands-on exercises and class project. So this is where, I have some content for extra practice and examples, and the class project is potentially there just to answer questions in general. So if you're working on something in a previous lecture, or, you just have questions in general, you get stuck on something, that's a good time to do that, is in hour 3. All right. So for this first class, the objectives of this lecture, I mentioned at the start, but what is the need for data manipulation and management? I think everybody's getting a feel for it probably by now at this time. But the ability of what you're able to do, how you're able to change your data and then manage your data. We'll dig deeper into what is actually SQL. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So this is the language, the programming language that you use to tell the database, give it instructions on for it to do. And then the database itself is like the container that holds different data sets and storage and does all that in database management system. Talk about how you store data in a database, how you obtain it using SQL clauses. So there are a number of ways. Started to talk about that. I started to talk about that previously, but there are a number of different types of ways you can obtain data from a SQL database using the SQL language, and we call these clauses in SQL. And then last, we'll hopefully get this installed today for whoever we can, so we can make sure that these queries work and we can actually practice some light queries by the end of the class today. So this first lecture, it will go pretty fast, and we'll try to allow ourselves some time here at the end to get everything set up for the future classes. But first, just introducing these technologies and the need for this class. All right. So what is the need for data manipulation? So the class is really structured in a very similar way. You'll notice that these follow the different lectures, but creating new data sets and combining disparate data sets, this is creating and extracting. We'll see that in week 2. So the classes that come next week. Performing common queries, aggregations, and joins, transforming data. That'll be this first and second lecture. Really getting your hands on the SQL language to understand how you can get data from the databases and database tables and what you can really do with it. Adding, removing, or modifying data. That'll be the cleaning data. This will also come in week 2 and a little bit in week 3. This will actually be week 2. And then extracting and storing data, which is the retrieval. So all of these will come in the following next 2 or 3 weeks, and with the final week being more about the design of the database, how to structure a database so you can more efficiently do all of these things. All right. And by the way, anytime anybody has any questions as I'm lecturing, feel free to toss it here in the chat or grab my attention or ask a question as we go if something doesn't make sense. We have plenty of time in this class, so feel free to raise your hand and we can just talk about it here on the spot. And that discussion may be good for anybody else who has a question here in the class. Maybe they have a similar question, but feel free to raise your hand or unmute. Let me know. All right. So a question is here, one of the things you can do with SQL is manage large amounts of data. This is really comparing the difference between the SQL databases, the relational database, like I talked about. It's really structured here, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet with your rows and columns. Your columns may be male and female, the total amount of spend, what purchases or what maybe a product that they bought or something like that. And each row is a record. So maybe it's a transaction in a database. Maybe it's something, Michael Feldler bought off of Amazon on 10/28/2020 or something like that. That will be stored across here in a number of fields. So that's what a relational database is all about. We'll cover this also in the class, the analytical database. This is structured for analytical purposes. So you have these tables and you have business representations of the data here. So this is going to it'll make more sense when we get to that point, but note that within a SQL database, there are different ways to structure it. There's a relational database and an analytical database way to structure it. And we'll cover both in these classes, and you'll see the advantages and disadvantages of structuring it that way. NoSQL databases, this is what I talked about. It's part of the final lecture, so you don't have to worry about it too much. I just wanted to illustrate that there are really a number of different ways that you can store data, and these are really the common ways that you store it within a SQL database. All right. So some relational database lingo. So this is a type of lingo that you'll hear from professionals in business when they talk about SQL databases. So a table is the data structure in SQL where data is directly stored. So we talked about the database. The database is like the larger container. Think of a database is like this whole thing. And then it contains relational tables and analytical tables inside of it. So the database is the container, the outside of itself. So I'll give you an example of this. Once we're able to log into MySQL, it should look something like this. And each one of these is a database. So you have the COVID-19 database. And then you'll have different tables within it which actually hold the data. So there's a United States table inside of it that holds like dates, cases, and the number of deaths. So that's how that works. So the container holds multiple tables, and the tables hold the data within a SQL database. And then, of course, with the data, you could tell the SQL database what to do, how to get the data, and then you could use it for any number of purposes or manipulate it in a number of purposes in different ways. And we'll see that as we go through the class. And then last, the field and record is the column and row. So using this same example, you have columns. You have the dates, cases, and deaths are your columns. And the row is each date with the number of cases. And depending on how you store data, the dates could mean something different. So if I was to go to, I don't think I have the counties. I have some of the county data loaded. You'll see like in the US, it's all of the US by cases and deaths per day. But in this table, the US counties, this is stored by date, county, state, FIPS code, which is similar to zip code, and then cases and deaths. So there are a number of different ways that you could actually store these rows or the transactions in the database. So you start to see like SQL databases in these tables are I think of them as an intuitive way of storing. So you have both rows and columns, and then it becomes easy to select something directly from this. So if I said select state, this won't mean too much to you yet. If I said select a distinct state, so we just want all the unique states from that table, you can see all the unique, we can see all the unique states because we're selecting the columns. So it really gives you a pretty solid data structure to be able to work with the store data and then work with data. And then schema is how a table or database is organized or designed. It's not all databases, SQL databases have schemas. In MySQL, they use schema and database interchangeably, but in some databases, these are kind of like how tables are grouped or organized within a database. So you could actually kind of have like a sub database structure, but not super important in this class, other than we use the MySQL database in this class, other than schema and database being used interchangeably. But you'll see throughout business that there are different database systems that are used. Maybe some use SQL. God forbid they use Microsoft Access. But we see Sybase databases at Paradigm Oral Surgery. And they're all SQL databases, and you can get data in a similar way. But a lot of them will have small different variances, like do they have schemas? Are some of the functions different, or some of the keywords different, and so forth. But really underlying all of it, if it's a relational database, it has a database table and uses the SQL language to be able to get information from the database. And then, but the beautiful thing is, once you learn SQL, you can basically more or less use any database system. It's only really like the differences are only really a Google search away, or you have the internet at your fingertips, any number of resources to kind of show you the differences between one database or another and what you need to be able to use one of them. So these are really just the basics of SQL relational databases versus some alternatives and some of the standard things about them. All right. So we talk a lot about SQL. So this is a common thing. So you'll hear some people say SQL. You'll say some people say SQL. It's really the same. Some of the people who are older, they say SQL because there's actually an older version of relational databases they called SQL. So a lot of the old timers that hang on to it, and then more the new schoolers say SQL. So maybe it dates you a little bit in business, but really it's pretty interchangeable. But I use SQL. That's how I started my career. I was used to everybody saying it that way, but it works either way. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It's a standard programming language for relational database management and data manipulation, especially within relational databases. It's just a perfect language for it, really, to grab from those tabular structures that we saw or be able to bring those tabular structures together or summarize it, exclude records in a bunch of different ways. Interestingly enough, so many people are used to SQL, they're starting to apply this to non-relational databases also. Won't really be covered in this class, but if you know SQL, you'll be able to do a lot with data. You'll have a pretty strong foundation for being able to do different things. So I just mentioned that because of that reason. Mentioned it on the last slide, but they're different dialects, really just the differences in how the database manages tables and the different database servers. We use MySQL in this class, but you'll see any one of these databases in business, and even old legacy databases, or any number of them. The key is, like I said on the last slide, is if you know SQL and you know the fundamentals of relational databases, you're only really a Google search away from any of the differences between the databases. So you'll hopefully become very powerful in your knowledge. Once you learn the SQL language, that'll transfer to any number of different types of databases. All right, so a query is a statement that asks for information from the database. We also covered that too, but basically a query is any SQL script that you write. So any piece of code as simple as what we wrote here, just selecting all the columns from this table, or even things that we'll see throughout the class. You can write some fairly complicated queries, but either way, they're queries with different components. Tell the database, they ask the database, in essence, like a number of different ways that you can get data, and then the database will return it to you depending on how you ask the question. So I like to think of that as a query is like you're really asking the database a question. It's like, can I have the data this way? But you're doing it with the SQL language, and then then it knows what you're talking about, and it brings you back that data. All right. So it runs locally on a server in the cloud. This class is the first chance we get to run MySQL in the cloud. There's not really a lot of difference other than Ronnie would tell you we don't have to install a database on our machine. It can just be out there in the internet, and we just connect to it and use it, which is kind of a new wave of technology, but really nice. We don't have to set it up all ourselves. We don't have to configure the database, or more accurately, somebody at our businesses be able to configure it. But we can if we choose to, either way. And then simple and fast, only one data structure and optimized. So SQL is really kind of just like a standard within business. Not a ton of people know about it. It's been used for over 40 years within business. So it's really familiar, but it's also really efficient once you get data structured in tabular forms. So there's that one data structure. It's really intuitive. If you know Excel spreadsheets, we're used to working with data at all. It's really like an intuitive, familiar way of storing and getting data. And it's highly optimized. So these database management systems will actually optimize how the data is stored. And there's some things that you can do there. But it's a really efficient way, especially if you have a lot of data, to store it in a tabular format and then be able to ask it questions. And it can bring you back data within milliseconds or seconds of what you're asking for, instead of having to do it all by hand or some other manner. So really intuitive, fast way of storing data, and well known by community. Which is why I say, if you know SQL, if you're familiar with it, say it's very highly valuable skill in business. And I fully believe that for some of those reasons. All right. So SQL components, just showing you the different parts. of what you can do, the different SQL commands. There are these different types of control languages within SQL. So there are different things that you can do. So we'll see these throughout the class, but DDL is data definition language. So this is really modifying your data structures. So this is like creating a table. So you can create your own tables for storing data. You can alter them, you can change them, you can drop or delete them, you can rename them. You can do a number of things with tables. So this is really about storage. Data manipulation language. So select, insert, update, delete. So select is getting data from the database. Insert is putting new data into a table. And then you can update different values or delete it out of tables. So it's really like working and manipulating with data. Data, this is kind of like your access. I think it's called data control language, but you can grant and revoke permissions. So this is one thing I work on here in the third hour for everyone. Here, making sure you have the right permissions in the database. And there's this transaction control language. So this is more about like database administration. We don't even cover these in the class, but just letting you be familiar with things. One of the most common things is commit. So when a system has a new transaction, say it's an online system, somebody made a new purchase, they may commit a new transaction to the database. So it does it in a very controlled manner. Or they have a save pointer they can roll back if some error occurs with the table. So these are more database administration things. We will see. We could cover this probably a little bit, the user access. These are mostly database administration things. What we'll be mostly focused on in this are these two, the DL and the DML. All right. So what is a database? A database is a collection of information that is organized so it can be easily accessed, managed, and updated. So I kept talking about this container. This is really probably even more elegant way of stating it. Is it being a container or a collection of information or those tables that's organized so you can easily query it and access it. So the advantage of this is just really having databases for data. It provides, I think one of the biggest things is really persistence. So persistence is that you can store data in there and it stays in there until you tell it otherwise. So you could always put in data and it can be available to you until you delete the table or you get rid of the data, delete the data for some reason. It allows for data sharing. So multiple users of the database or multiple systems can use that same data. You can apply security to it. Data integrity and customization. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the SQL language or creating tables or joining tables together to really customize your data. And the integrity is just storing it in a place, making sure it's high quality, being able to clean it, and those things, making sure it stays the way that it's supposed to be. It helps with that as opposed to having data all over the place. You're able to more fully manage it in one spot. The disadvantage, I don't think the learning curve is huge. I think that you'll become pretty good at SQL over the last 4 weeks. I think you'll be good enough to be able to go to work and use it or use it on any projects. This maintenance and development cost is more if you have local databases, and usually you'll have database managers that will be able to help you manage the database for you. So the good thing is like you don't really have to set up the database and really know all the technical details. Usually there's somebody to help you there with that. And this class is really focused on if you have data there or you want to store data, how do you do it? And it can be abstract once in a while too. So we'll see later on when we're doing joins. Sometimes the queries will be less straightforward, but once you get used to it and you can start to visualize how these databases work and SQL works, I think that it starts to become a little more intuitive. So advantages and disadvantages, and database is really that way of collecting, storing data so you can easily access it using SQL. Right. So what is a table? So a table is those tabular structures I talked about that are within a database. So you can literally have hundreds of tables within a database if you chose to. So those are the little tabular structures that actually hold the data itself. It's in tabular form with rows and columns like we talked about. So back to that example, the rows are the dates with the cases and deaths, and the columns are the dates, cases, and deaths themselves. So the rows store the value, the columns have the names, and then you could easily write a query to be able to get this information. That's what a table does. It's this tabular structure, rows. You have the rows and columns that help you store the data and help store it and have the SQL language, help the SQL language be able to get exactly what you need from the table. And then we talked about rows and columns. It's a set of name values, or the columns like male, female, number of deaths. Rows are a single implicitly structured data item in the table. So that's all the data related to the columns. Then this one is just over here is just a brief code example. This is actually a create table statement. So that's creating a table. And this would work in SQL if you wanted to also. Anytime there's SQL here pasted in the spread in the PowerPoints, the intent is that you can directly copy and paste this and run it yourself. We don't have it up and running right now, but just as a reference for the future lectures, is that that's the idea, is that as we go, we'll take this code out, we'll copy and paste it, and then run it and then see what it does. Be able to really get your hands on it as we're talking about it. But that is what the table is. That's how you create it. And then you can insert values into it. So now that you have that structure, you define that structure, you can actually put data into those rows and columns. The columns being first name, last name, and age, and then putting those values in the rows. All right. So common data types. So SQL databases or relational databases can store a bunch of different types of data. So if you just think about all the different types of data that you can have, you can obviously have numeric data. You could have dollars, cents. You could have counts like we do in the COVID. You could have negative values, right? Like if you have product returns. You have characters, obviously. So you have anything from a single character, like a T or an F for a true or false, or you have variable character lengths, like you could have different people's names like Bob or Mary or Thomas with all a bunch of different lengths. And then one of the most important things in a relational database is that you store dates. So that's like really important in a database to be able to look at certain time frames and be able to write queries. So say you wanted to know the total sales of a product for a certain month, you could write a query that says, get me all the chargers that were sold between 10/1/2021 and 10/31/2021. So that'd be, give me all of them that are sold in October of 2021. You could use those dates and really be able to drill down and see, like what the sales were for that time, given all of the data, historical data in the table. But these common data types, these are what you will use I think literally 99% of the time when you'll come across with SQL. So the characters, the different types of numeric states. These others, the blob, it stores like paragraphs of information in it. So you could store a whole bunch of text. You could actually store files in it too if you wanted. That's not very often used. And the Booleans are like ones and zeros. So your ones would be true, your zeros would be false. These are pretty rarely used. These other ones, strings, numerics, and dates. Those are probably used at least 95% of the queries, if not more. But just wanted to illustrate these, kind of an introduction into the class. And you'll see a lot of this as we continue to go through. But down here, there's some key points about the data. So size matters as the scale increases. So as the data gets bigger in the database, it makes a difference how you define these. And then just the details of each one of these, what are signed integers and unsigned. The big data types like a blob, they hold very large values. And these are apply, precision, scale, fixed point, floating point. Those all apply to decimals. So you can really define like how many digits you have to the right of the decimal points. You can represent exact values, approximate values, and so forth. So you can really like fine tune. You can not only with these, you can also really fine tune those data types within a SQL database. This is provide an overview of by far the most common data types as an introduction. And this one, I won't cover it too much, but these are all the different possibilities that you have: numeric, date, character, Unicode, binary, and miscellaneous. So when you are working, it's somewhat useful to know these other ones. So if you ever have to work with a database administrator, someone maintaining a database, they'll be able to possibly tell you what SQL data types are the best for what data you're trying to store. So maybe, instead of a varchar, you could use nvarchar instead, but not really the level of detail we'll go into in this class that much, but not a bad idea to be familiar with them. And wherever I can, I provide tutorials or additional notes. Why it's good to have the notes is that I'll provide some additional notes here in some of the slides to help supplement the slide or provide some references to them. All right, now that I lost the slide I was on, I can quickly get back to it though. We're starting to near the end of this lecture too. So we are cruising. All right. So what is a query? So we kind of answered this before. It's like the question that you asked to the database to get it back. But we're going into a little more detail here. So now we're taking that concept and saying, what is the syntax? So how do you form a query in MySQL to be able to get you different aspects of the data out of the relational database tables? And you'll have what you have keywords here. So you'll have like select, from, where, group by, having, order by, and limit. A couple of these are required. You always have to tell the database what fields do you want, which is your select, and then from what table do you want them, which is your table list. And you can think about these other clauses like a where. That's like limits it. So if you only want female employees, maybe you could do gender, where gender is equal to F. Group by is when you're like summarizing data. So if you wanted to summarize the number of females, males and females, you could group by gender, and you could do a sum or a count here in the select, and we'll see the sum and collect as a column function. Basically, you can group your data. You can have a having. So if these groups, you could say, give me the groups that have more than 10 people in them. You can order your results, so sorting the results alphabetically or from highest to lowest is often really important as far as just like seeing the data or organizing it. And there's a special clause here that uses limit, and this can be useful if there's a lot of data in a database and it takes a long time, or it may take a little while for you to return it, but you say, I only want to limit the first 10 records. I just want to see what's in the database. Just give me a sample of it, and then I'll write the rest of my query so it's efficient. So there are a number, so you can already tell by those clauses that there are a number of different commands or queries you can give to MySQL. There are a number of different commands you can give to MySQL to help query the database and get data back in different ways. So just say queries to answer a question, and it's called SQL or structured query language. So this is the structured query language itself. You see it has a structure with the clauses in it, and then you can give it these different parameters and it'll be able to get the data for you. That's what query is all about. Open out. Lost a slide there. Oh no, it just disappeared. It wasn't working full screen, but let's see. Oh, because it's in different parts. I had this one. I forgot that I automated this one. That one's all right. Anyway, so the first one is select. So your query always has to start with a select statement. This is think of this clause sequence as the order in which these different parts of the SQL commands operate. So it's always select. So first you're telling the database, give me these columns. From the where clause, or let me see here. There should be I think this first one's actually supposed to be from. Yeah. So the first one is from. So you're telling it what table here. You're telling it which columns to get from those tables. So the from is actually first. So first you have to say, what table does it live in? The second one is, what columns from that table do you want? So which one of those vertical stripes do you want from that tabular structure? You can tell it where. So where is your limiting condition? So that's how you limit your data. You tell it males or females or above below a certain amount. So you group by and having. So you can group by and having. Group by is like summarizing by males and females, and then selecting your groups out of those with certain criteria. Then order by always comes last, and then those results. So there is a particular order in which these do occur from left to right. I think I went out of order there a little bit, but this gives you an idea of like the flow of how a query works. All right, and for the ultimate example here, putting everything together that we learned tonight, and this is one once we get set up for access to the database, the MySQL database, you should be able to run this query directly. So putting it all together for tonight, you have the select, your continent, and the name as a country from the world.country database, from the world database in the country table. So as we'll see, there's a pretty nifty database that we have. It's called the world database with various continents, countries, populations, death rates, and all sorts of good information. But you're selecting the columns from this country table where the continent is equal to Asia. And these little green things are comments that you can make next to them. So what comments to get, what schema of the table to read. You could limit the results to the continents, order by. You could tell it how to sort it. So this is an interesting one. So you sort by continent, which is Asia, but you tell it to sort descending. So I'll go reverse alphabetical order. And then I just want to see the first 10 from the database, just to give you a view of what countries are in Asia in the database table. So it's coming to life now. So the different components, that's how the structure of a basic SQL query works to be able to get the information. And just to give you a view of what that did, I can go to the world database and I'll show you everything that's in that table. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of information in here. So it's just getting the subset of data that's related to the continent of Asia. And then it sorts the name descending. And then it's just getting 10 of them. So out of all of this data that's in this table, we've told SQL using this query just to grab this portion of it, which is pretty cool, I think. You actually just give it commands, and once you get familiar with the structure, comes fairly simple to get just exactly like the little portion of data that you need that's stored in the table. All right, now we have the power. Of course, it's like the kind of like the match that sparks the fire here. All right, so saying that, actually, now that the spark has been lit, there are just a ton of resources out there. I think, anytime I'm learning something technical, these are great for learning it along. Like, I love class-based learning. It helps kind of, working with people and being able to ask questions. And there's something about classroom learning that I really like, but there's also all these references out here that you can refer to. So if you have a question, like I always say that you're a Google search away, but there's also just like a lot of good documentation about databases, Database 101, mini courses that you can take, teach you schedules, teach you the skills there. Interactive tutorials might be the best when you start learning. So I really like the W3 Schools interactive tutorials. And I think just a combination of learning it in class and then going to do it on my own is just like one of the best ways I can learn something. So like there are all these different, you can see the selects and where and all these different clauses. It'll give you an example. You can try it for yourself and be able to get information. So it just provides you like these interactive tutorials provide you more practice. And we do have exercises in this class and a class project that help you out along with quizzes. But these are a good supplement to your learning. Always, I think you can't beat books. So you have SQL in a Nutshell or Beginner's Guide or stuff like that. Videos, your basics in an hour, or just different fun ways to do this too. So whatever your learning style is, these are always good. These are good supplements to all of the learning too. And then it's just learning a new technical skill. It's a combination of learning and I think just doing it, just practicing it, using it on a routine basis in different ways, staying fresh on it. And then eventually one day you'll say, wow, it just really clicks. I have it. But even to this day, I still look up stuff because sometimes I don't use it very often or it's vague or whatever. So, or if I'm learning a new skill, I just have to get my hands on it in a tutorial or something. So, just more resources that you can use to help you out, along with some practice resources here. And then the last slide for the night, I put some coding standards here. So students across the classes have asked, are there any coding standards for SQL when you're writing scripts or when you're naming tables, or if you have multi-part names and stuff like that? There's really not a single standard like you have in Python. I can't think of the name of that Python standard. I'm sure you guys learned about it in that class. But you'll even see in different businesses, it's really, some prefer their columns to be named a certain way and some prefer it to be named in other ways, or they may have standards for SQL, but even at the bigger businesses, I've never really seen it. But in this class, we'll try to remain consistent as far as capitalizing all SQL clauses, keywords, like all the special words that you use that aren't column names. We'll try to capitalize all of those, and we'll lowercase all field and table names so you can tell the difference. We'll use underscores when using multi-name columns. So like, think of like account number. You could do like an account underscore number, or you can do an account number combined. And oftentimes, like some businesses, they'll like put them both together and capitalize the second word. They call it like camel case. But we'll use underscores here to kind of denote the two, and I kind of prefer that anyway. You bracket the keywords within a SQL query. We'll see that as we go through the class. And then SQL clauses on separate lines. So you just put, actually this one, oh no, this is a case when. So you have your select clause on one line, you have from on one line, your where, and then you have even your additional operator, your and operators. So it doesn't just look all just look like a single line that you can't tell any difference, because then it becomes kind of hard. If you structure it in a way like we saw on the previous slide, it really becomes a lot easier from reading top to the bottom. So as much as anything, the coding standards will be just to make everything really like easier to read for everyone. The queries to really like the keywords to stand out, so you know the differences between field names and table names. If you're using like any field names that conflict with special keywords in SQL, you're able to really differentiate the two, especially important when you're trying to learn these things. All right, so that is the end of tonight's lecture. We'll have about 30 minutes here to get everything set up. Did anybody have any questions or thoughts about tonight's lecture? Pretty good start.
Yeah, that was definitely a lot to unpack, but very informative.
Yeah. No, at the end of these things, I feel like I'm talking a lot.
In there, yeah, once I get in there, I'll definitely, things will start clicking a little bit more, but
yeah,
definitely a good forewarning to what is to come.
Yeah, keep these on hand and always refer back to them if there's something. I mean, I know sometimes, like even in the crypto class I was taking this semester, like this guy kept talking about this concept of I was trying to think exactly what it was, but not really that important. It didn't like click until like the very end of class. He like presented it like at the beginning, and I didn't really. It was like how Ethereum network works, and like I was thinking of it one way, but he's describing it as another, and it didn't like click to me until like near the end of the class. And then I went back and looked at the original, and like it actually like put it in some amount of context. I started to think about it like differently, or like once I saw it like that other way, I was like, I looked back on my notes and I was like oh yeah, that now that makes
The
a lot
aha.
of sense. It's like the aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect that in like any one of these classes. I would yeah, I feel like I'm talking a lot on a lot of these things. So if I'm checking in, it's just to make sure like I'm not losing anybody. And I actually feel like I kind of need like a drink of soda to clear my throat here for a second, or it's getting dry. But I wanted to give you a good introduction into it tonight. And as you see, there are 2 queries that you could run here tonight, so we can try to get you set up here in the last 30 minutes. Otherwise, Ronnie, I probably don't have too much for you tonight until you're able to get my SQL Workbench installed.
And will that be the only thing that I'll need for? Are we meeting on Wednesday night next or Thursday?
Yeah,
Was unclear about
Wednesday
that.
night.
Wednesday night.
Unless I'm really pretty flexible. So if everybody,
Wednesday night.
whenever
works best
anybody
for,
wanted to meet,
doesn't it for you?
works best for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was planning on Wednesday night.
If Wednesday works for everybody, that would be just very fantastic. I have quite a few work events coming up that are only on Thursdays, and so I would end up having to miss a handful of classes if that were the case. So if it does work for Wednesdays, that would just be fantastic.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Would anybody like to start class earlier since we're doing this online? Or does the 6 to 9 time frame work just fine?
I'm flexible.
I could start a little early if that works for everybody and that's what we're wanting to do. I'm flexible to an extent.
I'm flexible as well, so I'll defer.
Say maybe even a half hour earlier at 5:30. Gives everybody time to organize and grab some dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can either end a half hour early, or we could go through 9 and give ourselves a little more time if we're working on something. All right, that sounds good. We'll plan on starting at 5:30. I'm going to put these lecture notes out on Google Drive. Make a note for that.
And we'll be able to look at the lecture notes for lecture 2 before class time as well, or you'll put them up right before class.
Yeah, I'll put them up there. Maybe not tonight, but I'll put those up there tomorrow for what before class. That's a deal.
Well, I'm gonna run to Target then and get another adapter because my laptop cracked and the adapter I bought for the old one, but they replaced it with a new laptop and it doesn't have the same adapter. So,
Ronnie, you're such a trooper with all your tech stuff.
Well, I'm trying to make school tech stuff work because I have my own I can use, but I'm doing this for the school, and so I'm like being adamant that it needs to work with their technology because that's what the kids are going to have to fight through, you know? Ultimately,
you're the test.
Yeah, I'm the test, and that's why I want to break all the barriers for them by using district equipment. So.
Well, like I said, you've been quite the trooper for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you guys get your stuff installed, and I'll get mine installed tomorrow when I get to work then.
That's one of the keys of technology is to anticipate the questions, what people will ask or what they'll break. But even at that, it's almost impossible to fully know. But it's good that you're doing it all for everyone.
Well, and Jeremy, you know that
It's kind of
last
like
time I had admin rights, and then you get different tech people in there, and of course they got to lock everything down now that there's 50,000 items out there, and but I'm still an assistant principal that should have a few more rights, I think.
Yeah.
I'll keep battling the battle. All right, I'm gonna go.
No, I get it.
Go get that adapter fixed.
Bye, Ronnie.
All right. Good luck. All right. Yeah, Nate wanted me. So put this little end of lecture slide up here while we're waiting, just to mention that that's the end of the lecture. And then we'll do this once as we're closing too. But now is a good time to troubleshoot our Michael, your user access here to this database, and then Maura to get yours installed and be able to give you the same access that Michael has.
Yeah,
Well,
mine's slowly downloading.
Okay. As you're doing that, I'm going to work with Michael, and then whenever you get that installed, hopefully we have that knocked out by then. So this is what I did here, Michael. So I did a create user. And I did a...
Do you want me to try to run it again?
And I did a grant select on star point star. So this means grant select permission on everything on the database server to Fiedler. So I thought this command would let you select from that world database, but apparently it doesn't. I might need to give you some type of view permission also. So if it all works, your database will look something like this. So you'll see the COVID-19 in the world database, and this Sequila is like a transactional database, and then I gave you each your own databases to work in. So I want to do a Google search. Let's see, we want to SQL. I'm just reading here. Let's see, SQL. Let's see, MySQL. I'm just gonna list them all here. I'm bringing this over, so maybe I'll just remember myself the next time I watch this video. I didn't want to give everybody all access because just in case we drop each other's databases or something. But I did give you all, I thought, to each one of your schemas, your databases, but
So when I ran it again, I still got that error code 1142.
okay, I'll look up that error. But I didn't happen to spell FIED. Hold on 1 second. Okay, Michael, I tried to apply that again. Did you try to refresh?
So I suppose I could try to like sign out or sign in, but I just hit the run again, and I got the same 1142. Do you want me to share?
No, it's okay. I'll just grant all for a second.
Tell you what, and I will share, just so that way, what I'm saying is augmented by what you're seeing.
Try to do this now, Michael. I just granted you all on your own database.
I'm still getting 1142, so there must be something else missing.
I wonder if it's like one of those things where this is a cloud database. It's actually in Azure, Michael, so I created a MySQL database in Azure.
Or if there's something I need to do, like refresh or something.
Oh, this might be it, Michael. So, okay. I may have to define them this way. So inside of here, there's an administration, and then you could go to users and privileges.
Gotcha.
And notice that I have close to everything. I actually don't even have DBA. But yours is basically custom role. Now it's like a custom rule, global.
Oh, select.
Show databases. Show views. Fiedler. It might be, Michael, that yeah, this might work. I'll show you something here in a second.
Okay.
Kind of want the create view, show and create view. Okay, I added some permissions there.
Okay, and I am signing back in. Hey, there we go. I think that did it. Okay, so I closed the connection and restarted it. So if you wanted to do some experiments and back off the permission or anything like that, we could do that.
So real quick, try to run that query that you had, that world query.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
So I got results now. And yeah, it looks like a green dot. And, you know, there's no error code, so we're going to call that a 100. So I can keep doing this if you want to make adjustments. Up to you.
Okay.
Now, I also closed out this query page and then reconnected. So there might be something with doing that to have those permissions take effect.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. So what did I do? One of the keys is to, I think, show databases and show views.
Now
So right now I'm...
Go ahead. It did make the schemas on the side show up now.
Yeah, reload. The bad thing is I'm granting global now. So like if you're inside like the COVID database, you could in theory like drop a table or something.
Well, do you want to back some of that off and then I'll sign back out, back in and see if that changes things?
Yeah, give me a minute here. Alter.
Sure.
So it's my update's installing on my computer right now, and it says it's going to be 20 minutes, which we probably know that means 30 or so. And then I'll need to restart my computer and all that. So I'll get as far as I can between now and next class, and then Ronnie and I can kind of get up to speed at the beginning of next class.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just knocking these permissions out with Michael, so I set them the same as you have, and as long as that's installed, we'll be ready to rock on Wednesday.
I'll make sure this end of it is
no, that usually happens too, right? It's like somebody will bring their laptop and whatever reason the connection's like slow and they're trying to download something all night.
Yeah, I got an old computer, so it's chugging along. It gets me there. It's just definitely not in a timely manner. So am I good to hop off, or should I stay on while you guys are working this through?
Oh yeah, no worries. You could call it a night.
Alrighty. Well, I will see you guys on Wednesday at 5:30.
Yep. Sounds good. See you later.
Looking forward to it.
See you then. I'll hopefully be ready to go.
Awesome.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. See you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night. Bye. And these things, permissions are difficult unless you're an expert at these things. Let's see, file. I think I have all of them that I want here on Morris. Alter, create view, delete, drop. Probably want to create table space. Grant option. Index, insert. Update. Create user, create table space. Okay, I think I have a set of permissions here that I like. Feeler. Alter. The part of it is that I'd like to give you like all access to your own database so you can do whatever you want in there and then just like select access to these. So let me try something.
Okay.
I don't want to create anything, so I'll do a select and I'll show databases and I'll show views. So I might create a view in there.
I'll hang tight until you're ready for me to make a change.
Okay, give it a try. So I think that you should be able to view these databases, and I think you should be able to run queries out of that COVID database.
Okay.
So you want to be able to like create tables or insert new records or anything, or delete records. But
okay, so I'm going to close out, and I am going to go back to home. I'm going to go back in. All right. So you want me to what test do you want me to run first?
Yeah, give that one a try.
All right. So I'll just do this.
City.
Yep. So that worked.
So you
Now,
logged out and logged back in, and it worked.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want me to
go into your database, Michael?
Okay.
So the M Fiedler. Go to tables and right click and create a table.
Okay.
And then just put like any column name in there, like an A. Column A. And that's fine. And then just try to create it. I don't think it will let you, but I'm interested to see. If you go down to the bottom right and apply.
There we go.
So yeah, it'll create that for you. Okay. Let me write a couple of these down and try to grant you access to just your schema. I think we're getting close here. So we want to grant access. I should have just created my own user here and done this before class. Grant access.
Of course.
I know I did this all on Sunday, and I'm like, man, I should move this to the cloud so not everybody has to install like MySQL on their own.
When
server.
that by itself is good, because in that way, not all machines are being. The laptop I'm using, I think, is more horsepower than others, and so like with not having to have those processes on everyone's laptop is good.
Yeah. There is a little bit of a benefit to it, though, that everybody kind of has their own database to play with.
Yeah.
And then they could take it home and use it later, but it's a real pain in the butt to get everybody set up and where they need to be.
If we're just talking about it, right? This is where Docker could be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Create an image.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Gordon might do something similar, but not on everybody's individual machine. He has like I guess it's not quite the same, but he does it in AWS, I think.
Oh yeah, well, if you
and he like replicates it, and I guess that's not really. I don't think he really uses Docker. That's more like an environment that he has that he replicates.
Well, that's the beauty of using something like Docker, is whether you use Ansible to create it or you just create it from the command line. But that Docker image, you can run it anywhere. You can run it local, you can do AWS, you can do GCP, whatever. But what's nice about it is that if you had a starting image and you did want to have it run for everybody, particularly if we think down the road with classes on this, you could just have everybody pull the image that you specify from your repository, and then they're off and running.
Yeah.
So just a thought.
Oh no, I really like this cloud option though. If I get these permissions figured out, it's just a matter of everybody. So the good thing about Workbench is that it installs on multiple operating systems.
That is
and
nice.
then if I get these permissions sorted out, then it's just like running a script. All I have to do is run a script.
Yeah.
Let's see, command line, grant privilege. Okay. Database name .star2 user. Okay. So I want to plug in the permissions I'm looking for here.
Okay. Are you ready for me to close this?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I just lost. So I want alter create. I need to write these down. And I kind of planned on just letting everybody, if I get these permissions right, just keeping this database open for people to use. I
It's
pay
probably
like
about $10 or so. Yeah,
$10
like just
a
like
month.
10, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, can I script this thing? There's a whole. Actually, I don't care if I just grant you all to your own schema.
Right.
Okay. Do you see what I did, Michael?
Oh, I can't see your
Turn
screen
all
at
the
all.
M Fiedler. Oh, you can't? Did I stop
No.
sharing?
Well, I'm just seeing mine. Do you want me to stop sharing?
I hit it. Go ahead and try your schema and try to create a table inside of it.
Okay.
No. Create. Here, try this again in 1 second.
Sure.
I might just have this syntax completely wrong. Okay. I just granted you create on your own schema, so you should be able to create a table. I think, okay, yeah. I think there's something I'm missing. Schema M Ramsey. I don't really get. I might have to add this piece to it. M Fiedler @% Okay. So this is a @. I have no. Do not have a good idea of what that means. And the end of the user account name. Okay, let's give that another try.
Okay.
That might be it. This is still an error.
Yeah. We'll do a refresh. Yeah, still there.
I don't want to keep you here too long. This is something I could probably figure out. Schema M Fiedler. As it seems like you have all access there, huh?
Looks like maybe something around create command.
Okay, let's try this. So you can specify schema privileges in here. So if we add entry, M Fiedler, it seems like that command was working, but for some, maybe it's like the overriding administrative roles. Maybe they override the schema for the schema. Okay. Select, insert, update, delete, execute, show view, create, drop, create temporary table. Okay, create teacher. Okay, I just applied it.
All right,
go ahead and give it another try.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, I'm going to back off this administrative role.
Boom.
Okay. Well, I can do that through here. That's schema privilege. It seems like that's what my script was doing, but there must just be something that wasn't quite right about the script.
Okay.
Oh well. Yeah, I can just I can just do it this way.
Okay.
For everybody else. So thanks for bearing with me on that one.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's see, administrative, and then you can still see all the others. I think I can
see more.
I
think I can see more now. I can see sys, which I don't think I saw before.
Yeah.
And then I don't know who this one is.
Oh, that one is a transactional database that we'll use later. Okay. So if you're interested in looking ahead, it's part of our design class, and we'll actually use it a little bit when we start to talk about column functions and triggers, database triggers. We'll take a look at this database, but it's designed. It's like an old Blockbuster where you have like rentals, movie rentals.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And I think there's a schema out there as far as a ERD diagram board and kind of a description. It's like one of those educational databases that you use.
Gotcha.
You can take a look at it if you're really interested.
Like a reference one.
Yeah. That should do it. All right.
Cool.
I'll let you go watch the rest of Monday Night Football here.
There we go.
Or whatever you want to do with the time. It's up to you.
I'll probably chip away on a couple more tasks a little bit.
Yeah. I'll probably just go to bed. I should just go to bed, but I'll probably be up till 11.
Yeah.
Instead.
So you think we're good probably on recording?
Yeah. All right.
So I can hang on for a second, but if you wanted to end the podcast.
All right. Bring this to a close. This is the end of class 1. See you next week or on Wednesday for class 2. Thank you. Bye.